morning, Nigeria. Today it's Wednesday, May 28th, and you're tuned into the morning market brief on BDTV. This morning, we start with some good news from the NGX. The NGX hit a new all-time high yesterday as the all-share index surged by 1.57%, closing at 111,606.22 points, basically marking a significant milestone. Essentially, what this means is that the market capitalization of the market has pushed beyond the 70 trillion naira mark. Now we have our market cap at 70.377 trillion. Essentially, what we're going to be seeing is that now we're going to be pushing for the 100 trillion naira mark. Year to date, the all-share index has appreciated by 8.43%, significant appreciation. Are we going to see the market hit 30% by the end of the year? We don't know. We are just in the middle of Q2 2025. Market depth was positive as we saw 36 gainers against 21 losers yesterday. And leading the pack of the gainers, we saw Airtel Africa up by 10%. There was a full bid on Airtel in 8 deals to push Airtel to a new share price of 2,372 Naira.50. Its highest ever share price on the NGX. Basically, at this share price, Airtel is selling at a premium on the NGX compared to its other listing, the London Stock Exchange. Basically, as Airtel announced recently, Airtel announced last week that that concluded the first tranche of its $100 million share buyback. We've been seeing quite a bit of activity on that share, and yesterday we saw full bid. The market went up by just that basic action. Then we also saw Omatek Ventures go up 9.23% to a share price of 0.71 naira. Cornerstone Insurance went up by 8.63% to close at a share price of 3 naira 40 kobo. Nigerian Aviation Holdings Company, NAHCO, handling company, I beg your pardon, went up by 8.339% to close at 80.75 naira. Then we saw University Press Limited, the Ibadan-based printing press, up by 6.47% to close at a share price of 5 naira 10 kobo. Like I was saying about Airtel, Airtel basically led the market to over ₦1 trillion worth of gains. And if you look at the market activity, you discover that market activity was not as much as what we had on Monday. We saw just a trading value of 9.87 billion naira in about 15,900 deals. On the flip side, the top decliners were McNichols. McNichols went down by 9.80% to close at a share price of 2 naira 21 kobo. Then we have CWG, Computer Warehouse Group, which went down 9.50% to close with a share price of 9 naira 5 kobo. Champion Breweries is still up. However, it went down 7.38% compared to where Champion Breweries started the year. We are seeing Champion Breweries at about 70% year to date. It closed yesterday with a share price of 6 naira 90 kobo. Essentially, after 2 weeks of intense of massive gains in the exchange, we are seeing quite a bit of market correction with that particular stock. Red Star Express, the transport company, went down 4.62% to close with a share price of 6 naira 40 kobo. Then Jaiz Bank was down by 4.46% to close with a share price of 3 naira 21 kobo. Basically, trading activities were robust, however not as robust as Monday, as we saw 409.5 million shares exchanged in a trading value of 9.87 billion naira. And what were the stocks that drove activities yesterday? Custodian investment, 37.589 million shares of custodian, what around 752.11 million naira were traded. If you look at the exchange yesterday, we saw an insider buying activity as one of the board members at Custodian bought about 150 million worth of the company's shares. As we're talking about, his name is Mr. Olakunle Adeojo, who is one of the major shareholders in the company. Then we saw Fidelity Bank, also significant trading action happened on Fidelity Bank. Because of the significant trading action that happened on Fidelity Bank, we saw what we describe as some bit of bullish action, especially the fact that the share moved from 18 naira to 18.50 kobo yesterday. Just a slight gain, but still a gain irrespective. 36.995 million shares of Fidelity Bank were traded yesterday. The Veritas Capital Assurance also 33 million shares of Veritas Capital Assurance, totaling around 34 million naira. Zenith Bank shares also 27.432 million shares of Zenith Bank, amounting to around 1.328 billion naira. Then Access Holdings, basically Access Bank, we saw 23.693 million shares of Access Holdings with a value of 519.556 million naira. So when you look at the international market, now we're turning our gaze to the international market. There was a rally in the US market following Donald Trump's announcement to delay a 50% tariff on European goods. Basically, he's been toying with the idea, talked about it, but yesterday he announced that there was going to be a pause because the EU has now called to begin trade talks with the United States. And he paused those tariffs, he paused the announcement of those tariffs till July 9. What do we see in the market? As at 1:35 Eastern Standard Time in the US yesterday, we saw Dow Jones up by 1.58%, S&P 500 was up by 1.91%, we saw Nasdaq also up by 2.38%. This is coming weeks after we saw what was significant declines, significant sell-offs in the market. Just some few weeks ago in April, after Donald Trump announced some of his tariffs, after he announced what he described as Liberation Day, the week that followed, we saw the S&P 500 go down by almost 19%. It went down by as much as 18% day after day after day. However, we are seeing the S&P 500 now very close to its all-time high, which it achieved in February of this year, which it achieved in around February 18 of this year. Basically, this was also coupled with a positive consumer confidence report. A consumer confidence report basically depicts how basically tells about the pulse of consumers in the United States, and the report shows that consumers are confident. There's palpable confidence in the economy, essentially showing that since they have not been seeing price pressures from the tariffs, they are having no cause to worry. And all of that report led to some significant jumps in the US index. From the US, we go to Asia, where we saw basically before we go to Asia, something was said by the US trade chief, by the European Union trade chief, who said that the bloc, the European Union, the 27-member group, is trying to avoid what he describes as the mutual pain of tariffs. So they are entering into a trade talk with the United States on June 27. Nikkei 225 was up by 0.51%. It closed 0.51% up yesterday. However, in South Korea, the Kospi index was down by 0.27% to 2,637.22 points. And in China, the Hang Seng index was also up. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng index was also up by 0.43% to 23,381.99 points. Basically, we've been seeing quite a bit of mixed reaction across the Asian market, and the same thing we saw in the European market. Basically, there was a bit of bullish action in the European market due to the fact that the United States has announced that they were commencing trade talks. However, in France, we did not see much of any market movement. It was just a flat close. We saw in the UK, the FTSE 100 saw a hike of 0.69% to close at 8,778.05 points. In France, we saw a slight dip of 7,826.79 points. And in Germany, there was a slight movement, 0.83 percentage points, to close at 24,226.49%. On the currency side, there was a slight dip in the exchange rate of the Naira. In the official exchange rate, the Naira declined from 1,579 Naira to a dollar to 1,583 Naira to a dollar. In the black market, we saw the Naira move from around 1,617 Naira to a dollar to 1,620. Slight dip, however, still a dip. And that's all we can take on the morning market brief on BDTV this morning. Have a lovely and wonderful investing day.